So recently, Behavior has announced that they're just gonna go back on all of their decisions on removing haste and hindered stacking, which I think is really stupid. And I don't know if anyone else online has agreed with me on this, but I've kind of came up with this idea. I've always thought of this idea, and I don't know. I haven't seen anyone online talk about this, but I'm not really in the community like that. But I think that literally all they needed to do was make it so that haste can't stack on survivor, instead of removing all of hinder and all of haste stacking for both sides. I think that was just really stupid, and all they needed to do was just remove it for survivor, because that was where it was problematic. That was the only reason why anyone even said haste stacking is a problem. I never saw anyone say that haste stacking was solely because of killer. That just isn't true. It all started from survivors doing RPD offerings or whatever offerings, but I think it's typically RPD, and running stuff like Blood Pack, the teamwork perk, and like Hope, MFT, and all that. And that was clearly a problem, because the reason why that was a problem was it made you almost as fast as the killer, or in some cases even faster than the killer, to where they just can't catch up. And when you're on a map like RPD, it is very, very, very hard for a killer to catch up to you on Survivor, especially if you have like balanced landing and stuff, which usually is the case. And that's why it was a big deal. And that's where literally all the argument started, was because of that meta. Well, not really a meta, because it wasn't that popular, but there was a big emergence of people doing that, and it was only on Survivor ever. Personally, I don't think that hinder on killer or survivor is particularly problematic, so I don't really care about stacking hinder on survivor or killer. I think to be honest, I wouldn't really care if they removed hindered straight up anyways, because yeah, hinder is pretty annoying, except for very specific instances, or for killers such as like singularity getting hindered off of a pallet stun. That's necessary and that's fine. Or clown's bottles or whatever. Like if it was just tied to killer's powers, I wouldn't really care. Like if they removed hinder from all perks except for killer's power and like champion of light, which I'm fine with champion of light having hinder, that would be completely okay. I don't think haste is a problem on killer at all, like haste stacking. There are like two killers that I can think of right now that even get haste from their power, which is Clown and Singularity, which I'll kind of go into Singularity a bit later, but Clown isn't really the strongest killer anyways, so it's not even like that big of a deal. The reason why haste stacking on killer is nowhere near as problematic as survivor is the haste stacking on survivor is because of Survivor Friends, which is already everyone can agree on that the strongest role in the game is Survivor Friends. And when you have something that makes Survivor Friends even stronger, that's not okay and that's problematic. And it hardly affects solo queue, because when you want to nerf things, you don't want to nerf solo queue, but you want to nerf Survivor Friends. All this would do is nerf Survivor Friends. It is the only thing in solo queue that you can accomplish with haste stacking is Hope MFT, which even then I think it's probably problematic, or probably fine to gut anyways, because you don't need to be faster than the killer when you already won. Or not faster than, but around as fast as the killer when you pretty much already won anyways. But why I don't think it's a problem on killer is because you have to dedicate 2 whole perk slots to haste stacking usually for most killers. Obviously like Clown and technically Trapper, but it's so minute on Trapper, it doesn't matter. But on like Clown, you do get that haste that you get anyways, but it kind of balances out in the sense that survivors can also get that haste too, so it's not that bad. But I don't think like on any killer it's going to be a problem, because you have to run 2 whole perks instead of running much stronger perks like Pop, Eruption, or whatever. It's just like 2 slowdowns. You have to run 2 perks to do a fun little whatever build, and then that's just not going to be, you're not going to be able to do that anymore. And that's just going to open the door for people just running more slowdown. It's going to bring back a slowdown meta. I remember when they nerfed Nurse, when they made it so that exposed or mangled doesn't apply. Her blink attacks only count as M2 attacks. That was a problem because, yes, Nurse would a lot of Nurse players would run 4 slowdowns instead of running Starstruck or Sloppy Butcher, which, granted, it was a deserved nerf anyways. It's just Nurse being Nurse. So what that's going to do is just going to make killers run more slowdown. It's just be really fucking boring. And even then, if you're running 2 haste perks, I still wouldn't even argue that they're not as strong as running just Bamboozle or just running Brutal on most killers. I think Bamboozle is stronger than running like Game of Foot and Rapid Brutality or just any combination of haste perks. I just think Bamboozle is always going to be better, and Brutal Strength is usually going to be better. And the thing is, like, if you're going to be running haste stacking perks on killer, you're going to be running them on weaker killers anyways. You're going to be running them on like M1 killers. You're not going to be running on like Spirit, Blight, Nurse, Billy, because they're already fast as fuck. They don't like the benefit that they're going to get from the mobility of haste stacking is not going to be worth it anyway. So like, this is like the fucking save the best for last nerf. All it did, because what save the best for last did was make the weakest killers a little bit stronger and make them a little bit more viable and make them a bit closer to the strongest killers in the game. Because like Nurse, Blight, Billy, they don't really benefit from Save the Best for Last. And that's why I thought Save the Best for Last nerf was just really stupid. Because what, again, haste stacking does, it just makes already weaker killers just a little bit stronger. And even then, again, you can run these other perks like Bamboozle or Brutal to make them way stronger than running even 2 haste perks. Again, the only killers I see problematic is just Clown, maybe, and Singularity, which even then, I don't think Clown is that great anyways, so it doesn't really matter. And again, you have the trade-off of the survivors can also get hasted too. With Singularity, yes, Singularity is kind of a problem when you're running, Rapid Brutality or whatever else, because it's just Singularity himself is a problem, and he needs to be nerfed in other ways too. It's not haste stacking that makes Singularity good. It's Singularity being Singularity that makes him good. I don't know if anyone's making the argument, but that's the only counter that I'm even thinking of to what I'm saying here about haste stacking. I don't think it's strong on killer, and I don't think anyone has ever made that argument that it's strong on killer. It's just, if you have to remove something on survivor, you also have to remove it on killer, when I don't think it has to be the case. Removing haste on stacking on survivors, I have seen people, behavior actually, this is the reason why they wanted to remove haste and hinder, which I don't think should have been the main reason. It should have just been to remove, like, to nerf survivor friends and not make it absolutely painful to go against. But the reason why they did it was to buff like Dark Theory or perks that were already pretty trash on survivors, either by themselves or just garbage in general, because the problem is if you make the number too high and you stack them, it's going to be broken on survivor. And if you just remove it for survivor, that's great. Like, you could buff perks now, or you can introduce new perks that would otherwise be very problematic with haste stacking. And this would obviously in turn happen to killer if you don't remove haste stacking, is that these perks are probably not going to get buffed and remain unchanged. When I honestly think that if you buff the perks like Game of Foot, or like, I don't think Rapid Brutality needs a buff, but like certain haste perks like Game of Foot or Unbound or whatever, I think is what it's called when you vault the window and get haste, like those perks are already pretty garbage anyways, even with haste stacking. So I think that those perks can get buffed too. I don't think that there are, I genuinely don't believe that haste stacking on killer is a problem, especially when Bloodlust exists. I've always thought that Bloodlust should probably be removed, or at least just tier 1 Bloodlust, because you just get haste for free. When the haste stacking, you have to dedicate perks to or do certain things to get that haste. And I don't understand how Bloodlust can exist in the game, but then, haste stacking on killer is somehow problematic, when that doesn't really make any sense to me. And I think that's pretty much it of my little rant or ramble on how I think haste stacking, how behavior should handle the haste stacking is by making it so that it's just removed on survivors from stacking haste, the same way where it's like you have hope, which is like 8%, and like MFT, it's just going to be 8%. It's just going to be the highest number, which is fine. That's what it should be, and it should be on just survivor, because I don't think it's problematic on killer to have haste stacking. And then with the hindered, I don't think that they need to touch it, or if they do touch it, I could honestly just remove hinder from all the perks in the game. I don't care, and just have hinder being on killer, and then also maybe champion of light still have hinder. That's fine. And like chemical trap, those are fine. I don't actually, honestly, I don't think hinder from the survivors going onto the killer are that big of a deal. I think they honestly, I'm struggling to think right now of any perks on survivor that would like that are problematic that hinder the killer. I'm not thinking of any. I think I'm gonna like champion of light or chemical trap, which I don't think are problems that they hinder the killer. I just think that being hindered as a survivor from the killer is pretty annoying, and I wouldn't actually care if they removed all killer perks from hindering. I'm fine with killer powers, because some killer powers rely on that, except for Houndmaster. Don't know why Houndmaster hinders. That makes zero sense to me. Like, you have 20 seconds to hit a survivor, or whatever. You have infinite amount of time to hit a survivor, and if you don't, then you get, the survivor gets punished and gets hindered for like another 5 seconds. It's stupid that Houndmaster hinders, and that should be removed anyways. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it that I wanted to cover. And I haven't seen anyone. There might be other people who said this. I personally haven't seen anyone talk about this, but I think this is a great idea, and yeah.